Okay.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Secretary Shri Pankaj Kumarji, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, Mr. Ashok Kumarji, the eminent speaker delivering the talk today, Shri Ravindra Desai, Director Operations, Government and Corporate Relationships, Art of Living, River Rejuvenation Projects, and all the lovely participants. A very warm welcome to today's talk. I'm Anupma, the Director and Editor of Water Digest. And I'm glad to share that today we are hosting the 24th Water Talk for the National Water Mission in their partnership. And when World Water Day is right at the corner and the theme has come out as valuing water, I'm really happy to see that this time the topic is also very different. And let's see the cultural perspective our speaker is bringing today, along with his knowledgeable base for the water sector specifically. So with this note, I would now like to introduce the topic for today's Water Talk, which is the river rejuvenation at Art of Living. I'm sure half of us must be thinking, wow, Art of Living. Let's see what holds today during the talk. And without further ado, I would now request Shri Ashokji to please propose a welcome address and tell us more about the speaker chosen today and the topic he's going to deliver. Over to you, Ashokji.
Thank you, Anupama. Very nice introduction. So welcome all of you to the 24th edition of the Water Talk hosted by the National Water Mission. National Water Mission, as all of you are aware, it was one of the missions started in 2011, response to the climate change. This was in response to the Indian Action Plan for Climate Change. 8 missions were started, and one of the mission is the National Water Mission, and we have been doing a lot of work in the water sector. And one of the major thrust area of the National Water Mission was to create awareness about the water and also make water conservation people's movement. We have been doing a lot of activities in that, and one of the most important vehicles and popular vehicles which we have come across is the National Mission's Water Talks, which, as I said, this is the 24th of it. It started off with physical water talk. About 12 went in the physical way. We were Delhi-centric and less, 200 to 300 participants were there. But when we moved on to the digital platform with the help of Water Digest Anupama and her team, we had an explosion of the reach as well as the geographic spread. So last 12 water talks we had on the platform, we did not go down with the COVID. We said, hell with COVID, we'll continue our water talk, and the mission went on. But we also surged in the numbers on the 18th water talk, where the minister came for delivering his speech. We had 2.8 lakh people live watching the program, and about 3.8 lakh people after total later on. So we were surprised to see questions coming up after the talk from areas like one question was, I remember, from USA, somebody from Nigeria had spoken, somebody from Dubai had asked a question, somebody from Australia had made a question. So it's a very interesting the reach which we could get, geographical spread, And I'm very interested that, very happy to say that many of our people wait for the water talk because the water talk quality of water talk had been very good. Two of our speakers had got Padma Awards last year. One got Padma Bhushan and one got Padma Shri. And that's why we are very picky and choosy about the people who have done extremely good work in the field and who can really inspire others is what our choices are. But moving on to the just before moving to the today's speaker, I just want to remind you that as Anupama said, World Water Day is coming on next Monday. Valuing water is the theme. So the last 1 year, we had been doing a campaign called Catch the Rain, Where It Falls, When It Falls. The crowning glory of it is that on 22nd March, when the world is celebrating the World Water Day, we also make a humble contribution to the Indian water sector with the PM launching probably the largest and the biggest water sector campaign, talking to Sarpanchas. So we are launching the Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain campaign, 22nd March at 11 a.m. Prime Minister will himself launch it because he had his last Man Ki Baat on February 28th mentioned about the campaign. He spent almost 2 minutes on talking about the water Catch the Rain campaign, where it falls, when it falls. He has said that this is the mool mantra of the campaign: catch the rain where it falls, when it falls, and applauded us to get into this campaign in a bigger way. The last 2 weeks, it was very hectic for us also. Secretary had arranged a lot of meetings with various other government departments. Cabinet Secretary had taken 2 meetings. Yesterday, we had a meeting with all the chief secretaries of the states, all the states of the country, and union territories were present, and 10 secretaries of various departments of India were also present. So we are now scaling it up, the campaign to cover all the districts of the country and all the blocks of the country, covering both urban and rural areas. For a period up to the end of November 30, up to a period of November 30. That's a pre-monsoon period and the active monsoon period. So our focus this time is to catch the rain. It's basically the supply side management. So we are requesting collectors to take up a lot of water conservation activities. One of them is the rejuvenation of rivers. Incidentally, probably on the 22nd March, after the launch by the Honorable PM, all Sarpanchas, we have about 2.5 lakhs Gram Panchayats in the country, almost all the Sarpanchas except those in the election mode, 1,500 of them. All remaining Gram Panchayats will be holding a special Gram Sabha to discuss exclusively about water. Probably this one time in the world, same time, about 2.5 lakh Gram Panchayats will be discussing on water. It's an amazing number. The figure is very frightening, but still I think we'll be able to do it because we are tied up all the logistics for that. We also send them what are the topics for discussion. We also told them how to conduct the discussions. We also told them the Jal Shapat, take a Jal Shapat, telling the people to conserve water and use the water prudently, and also to save rainwater. So our ultimate idea is that this will make the Jal Andolan a Jan Andolan. All people will be joining with the program, the Gram Panchayat level, and the bus has already been created with our awareness generation campaign with the Nehru Yuva Kendra. So December 21st, we started the Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain awareness generation campaign, in which we had so far 1.2 crore people participating. It's again a huge number. 1.2 crore people participating in various forms like quiz competitions and then rallies and slumdans and Prabhat Bheris and songs and dancing and debates and whatnot. So 1.2 crore people have so far associated with us. We also had given a lot of training programs. Last 6-7 months, we have organized almost 150 webinars, including the one which we are having the water talks. We also initiated a water tech talk on every second Friday, where we introduced to the audiences the latest cutting edge technology in water, both Indian and outside. We had people from this foreign countries, Israel and Sweden speaking. We also had entrepreneurs and scientists from India speaking. The IIT Chennai, IIT Kanpur, all of them, the professors from there had made presentations on the advancements made in the water sector. And also we had been doing the dialogue with DM, Castellan dialogues with DM every Saturday, where we bring in 4 or 5 district magistrates and 1 NGO talk about the activities they have been doing in the water sector in the districts. So overall, we had picked the mahal and well. And today we have Mr. Devendra Desai of Art of Living. Both are very important person as well as the organization. Art of Living, as everybody knows, is the organization headed by Sri Ravi Shankar ji, who has spiritual pursuits and yoga have influenced millions of people all over the world. He's a messenger of peace. He goes to foreign countries and even spreads the message of love and affection. Along with that, he also has a passion for water. So he has organized, asked his organization, the Art of Living, to take up a lot of work in the water sector. Nearly 35 villages have been transformed in around Karnataka. 35 rivers are being revived, and about 3,000 villages on the basis or on the banks of it have been and benefiting over about 50 lakh people there. And he also has done a lot of extensive water conservation works in those areas where the Art of Living people are working. They have done, they transformed very drought-prone Kapsi village in Maharashtra to having surplus water now. These are the initiatives which the Art of Living is doing. And the water sector is of this Art of Living River Rejuvenation Project is handled by Mr. Ravindra Desai. Mr. Ravindra Desai is currently the Director of Operations, Government and Corporate Relationships, Art of Living's River Rejuvenation Projects. He also manages a geospatial and IT teams for the project. A software engineer, kicked his job from the US, and the corporate job from the US, and came back to India. Deshbhakt for getting his knowledge he earned in USA and foreign countries, wants to use it for the welfare of people. So he found his guru in Sri Ravi Shankar ji, and has been at service. He has 20 years of experience in information technology. He was a banker, focused on retail banking and financial services, and then kicked that and joined his passion for water. So we will hear from him what he and his team has done, the transformation he has and is made in river rejuvenation. Not only that, his team has pioneered the use of the Manrega for large-scale projects. I have visited a couple of their projects where large areas of land were treated under the watershed approach and transformed into green, beautiful places. So I'm not exposing the plot. I'll leave it to Mr. Devendra Desai to tell and how they are managed, and also I'll request him to tell about how we brought about the mindset of bureaucracy also to help these large projects, because they are the pioneers in getting the Manrega work larger areas and make a qualitative difference in the outcome of the works. Their projects and their initiatives have been quoted as the most perfect example for government PPP participation of the people and the government and the NGOs. They have done a lot of works, and the software they have developed in monitoring various stages of the governmental processes is also being replicated most of the places. It's a very long journey, a tough journey they went through, but then now they are in very comfortable situations, smoothly sailing. So I request Mr. Ravindra Desai the Director of Operations for the Government and Corporate Relationships, part of Living's River Rejuvenation Projects, take over the floor and deliver his. Thank you, Mr. Desai.
Thank you, Ashok Kumar ji. Thank you, Anupama ji. Thank you for fine introduction of mine and what we do. And congratulate the entire Ministry of Jal Shakti for what you have started, which is very timely. Catch the rain where it falls and when it falls. The subject is very known. The problem is very known. Everyone understands the water issues. It has been there for some time. And we know we depend, as a tropical country, we depend on the rainfall. And not much of glaciers melting and not much of that in the entire India. So it is predominantly rain-fed areas which we have. And again, recently met Ashok ji when he had come to our ashram premises. He, in fact, witnessed some of our work sites and what we do, how we do. Again, I'm thankful for him spending that time down here. And congratulate once again to the entire Ministry of Jal Shakti and Ashok ji, your team, for hosting me, and congratulate the work you guys have been doing. And I sincerely wish that we can join your hands and work along in the entire part of the India to make this campaign a very successful one. We look forward for such association. Thank you. Okay, let's. I'll share a presentation. Right. Before I run through the presentation, before I go through, we just want to talk about, river rejuvenation aspect. There has been many such programs of late, obviously to the fact that water has become a crisis. Either there's floods or a drought, which we have to face across. And this has been there for almost a decade and more. So it is very imperative on everyone's part to work on this. So going back to the definition of river rejuvenation, which are several, as I understand across, we traveling across India. So our definition goes something like this. When I say river rejuvenation, we do mean reviving or rejuvenating precisely the entire riverine ecosystem. So what do I exactly mean here? The riverine ecosystem is not just set of a river and its streams and rivulets from the catchment to the valley or ridge to a valley, but entire aspect of the river basin which is involved. What does that mean again? It means that all these streams, rivulets, which finally become one of the river or a tributary or a basin, along with that comes other water bodies, tanks, and also the forest cover, which establishes a continued hydrological cycle, or basically a hydrological cycle is maintained with all of these ecological assets, part of the riverine ecosystem, right? So there has to be tanks, there has to be good vegetation cover, there has to be streams network, and all that flowing which has to happen. And apart from this is a visible entity. There's something not very oblivious to us is the groundwater, we call Antarjala, or the groundwater itself, which has a very beautiful connection with the surface water. So they are interconnected. We all know that, right? We have studied this sometime back in probably in our schools, that surface water is connected to the groundwater, but not much of effort is given to continue that cycle or ensure that we maintain that cycle back again. So to again go back to the definition, river rejuvenation from the art of living is something which we try to revive, rejuvenate the entire riverine ecosystem. So it should be uh, the rivers, the streams, the rivulets, the tanks, water bodies, and the green cover itself. And we cannot miss ourselves who are using it, the stakeholders of it, right? So it is the people, the demand side uh, of the water, which is also important. So that also is part of the entire ecosystems which we handle. So when we say revive rivers, and we say that means reviving the life, so all of this has to be holistically addressed, and that is when the entire program will be successful. Okay. Now, when I say this, did it start that way when we started? Probably no, right? Art of Living is a huge organization, volunteer-based organization. It has lakhs and lakhs of volunteers working on one or the other projects. So the same thing happened in with us. We had, few hydrogeologists working, which we were not aware they are all working individually, discrete ways in terms of addressing the water problem. So some even had prepared a good action plan. Our national director, Dr. Lingaju L.A., who had prepared a plan for Kumudwati revival, part of the Kaveri Basin overall. So they were working on, they were putting an effort. He was, in fact, the founder director of Karnataka Remote Sensing Application Center. So, but that could not be established while he was working in the government agency. So once he came down, retired, and came down to Art of Living, talked to Gurdev, Gurdev said, yes, we could start this, and this is very timely and needed. That's how it started. And Guruji at the same time called for a Volunteer for Better India campaign, getting more volunteers for such social projects. So when we kickstarted this Kumudwati River Rejuvenation project, we started just cleaning some old water pools in the area, what we call Kalyanis here. So we kind of water ponds in that area in the entire river basin. That used to all happen through hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who used to come along because of what Gurudev gave a call for Volunteer for Better India. So we kind of used to wonder how this whole hundreds of people could be accommodated, given directions to work on, what will they do. So it was a huge challenge for us to start with, right? So we could just sit and plan for weeks to see how to involve all these volunteers, and it just happened so that everything went perfectly fine. And we could see a lot of ponds being cleaned, and became a huge campaign for that river rejuvenation activity to kickstart. And a lot of corporate, a lot of weekend volunteers, what you used to call, from a lot of Bangalore is a hub for IT people, a lot of other industries here now. So a lot of volunteers on the weekend used to come. They used to go back, talk to their HR, talk to their CSR heads, and say this is the kind of a work which has to do. And that is how we got companies, corporates to come help us in terms of with the funds, in terms of how to carry out the work. And so many companies did come through, and Intel was one of them, Cisco was one of them, Robert Bosch was the first one to start with, and HAL, our very own HAL, came along, in fact funded 70+% of the entire project cost. So we had almost seven to eight different CSR partners for this project to run. So this is how it started initially. And there was another parallel story which was happening while me and one of my colleague in Art of Living was working in villages for farmers based issue, to solve the farmers based issue, or to improve his livelihood programs in terms of creating market linkages or creating FPOs, all that. So during that was in Chikmagalur of Karnataka, and we did see rain shadow. We were working the rain shadow area, and this couple of gram panchayats used to get only 300+ mm rainfall in a year. And every year we did see almost 5 to 10 meters receding, what groundwater receding. That was a drastic, uh, activity which was happening, and we had to contain it. We had to see how to contain it. So we started working. Then we did a couple of recharge structures. We cleaned up the stream networks. We created water pools. We did a gray water treatment in that village, and we could see a drastic improvement in the water availability beyond even the monsoon seasons. And that itself started becoming a campaign for us in terms of all neighboring villages wanted to come and support it. So these are the kind of two different activities which came together. And at the same time, Dr. Lingaraj Rele had already started the work, and we could bring this all together and make the entire river basin activity and definition. So Kumudwati River Rejuvenation is of 400 plus square kilometer area, 468 to be precise, with almost 270 plus villages across. And the Vedavati, where in Chikmagalur we are working, it was across 5 districts and 5,447 square kilometer area with 1,000 plus villages to be talked about. Now, these are the massive size of the projects, right? Like Vedavati in 5 districts, and we didn't know how do we get funds, because in one village when we worked, we spent PPP model where 11 lakhs was spent with a corporate funded, a people funded, and even Art of Living pitched in. So altogether, we could spend that and revive some of the water pools and rivulets and stream, and also do a good grey water treatment plants there. And it worked. And we had to replicate this is the entire basin which we were talking about. So the piecemeal would not work. We have to take the entire watershed approach. A complete integrated water resource management has to be applied on here. And that is the plan which was given by the national director. But the task on hand was to find out where do we get to see the funds for such a massive program, right? This is a dead river. Vedavati, it has not been flowing for a few years. Now we have to revive that. How do we revive the dead river? That is another question. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But we kept talking to government agencies. We talked to various Jal Nigams. We talked to various water resource, officers and ministries to see how to revive. But many a times, it was not easily understood that how Art of Living, who are known for its yoga and stress to get the stress-free life, work on water, and what is our capacity to do so, right? So we were kind of not invited easily to get onto these things. So we have to keep them convincing, which we did almost after 20-25 times of knocking their doors. That is how it is. I mean, initial part of the thing, when people don't understand, it's not their fault, but they are not aware that we can do this, and we could establish the team and the infrastructure what we had created, what Gurudev had created for us. And that was done, and we gave a plan which was kind of accepted, and we started delivering on the entire Kumudwati, which was on a CSR based, and Vedavati, which was the first of its kind of in Manrega based execution. Because any Jal Nigam, we could not get funds, that was there, not there sometimes. So it's almost 200 crores worth project which we had to deliver, and that was available under Manrega. Our people, our senior people working with the communities had to understand, read through the various acts in terms of understand the Manrega in its entirety, and also to understand the problems on ground in terms of actually delivering it on Manrega. So we did a lot of study during that time. It came through to a state where we could be very comfortable and had given kind of solutions and proposed the same to the ministry, and thankfully they readily approved it. And that is where whole thing started on Manrega itself. First time we take something on Manrega of a huge size of 5,447 square kilometers, covering 5 districts, namely Chikmagalur, Chitragurga, Hassan, Tumkur, and Davangere of Karnataka. So that was a massive effort which we started, and we could create phase one of to just to prove our point in terms of how it could be. And RDPR State and RDPR Central had visited us to inspect what we had done and how things were improving. And they had in fact talked to the farmers and on based on the outcomes what we had established in the phase one, and that is what took us long, and we started multiplying thereafter. Now, with that start, in which was kind of in 2013, now it is 2021. So we have done 47 rivers across Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, and almost talked to almost 600,000 plus villages across. And we have, continuing to do so across the entire India. So we have been in discussion with UP, we have been in discussion with Odisha, we are in discussion with, we started working on Rajasthan, we want to do it in Gujarat. So there would be various geomorphological zones, geohydrological and agroclimatic zones, which we kind of have selected to work upon, create enough test beds for us to, or for us or for any other organization to replicate, and kind of water knowledge is available right across for people to replicate those efforts. And that is something which has started, and I'm very proud of it in terms of how the organization has kind of brought in that aspect so far. So going back to the presentation, now we all know what is happening with water and kind of problems we have with the water. We all see that there's a lack of water, right? The immediate reasons given is not much of rainfall, and even we used to believe the same. I'm nothing to do with water. I'm not a water expert. I came from an IT background. I worked there for 20 years. I had nothing to do with the water. So we all understood that the rainfall has reduced actually, but that was not the case. I mean, which probably everyone now understands well, that the overall amount of rainfall in a year, when taken for a particular year to 5 years, to average of 5 years, 30 years, 100 years, it was all the same. And we were, at least I was stuck. It was amazing wonderment that how, if the rainfall is the same, the amount of rainfall is the same, and why we still have so much of problem compared to 3 decades or 4 decades back. And that's exactly what we tried to understand better, go back to in terms of what we could learn further. And that is when we kind of understood, or even our already subject matter experts, part of our voluntary based organization, had already come up with a plan to address these kind of issues. As I said, this we can see this the image on the presentation is quite indicative that what has caused the problem. Basically, we have disrupted the natural hydrological cycle. So rain used to happen, it used to fill up in the water pools, then the clouds, precipitation, then the condensation, then the clouds get together, then there would be rainfall, and the water percolates into the ground, then upswells again back and continues to flow as river streams or have our water bodies filled up. So this is something which we all know. It is, if I remember, it should be class 5 geography, lesson which we had been, learning. But somehow we kind of not linked it to the real-time issues in terms of what we are dealing with. And if you see today, what we have done, the green cover is lost. There's land use changes drastic. There's a lot of dependency on the groundwater. We have been extracting a lot of groundwater, and due to the green cover loss, there is also siltation into the water bodies. The percolation possibilities has come down. The storing capacity has come down of the tanks. The catchments have been disturbed with again the green cover, and even the continued global warming also has contributed to very changed rainfall patterns. Now, among all this problem, that the rainfall pattern is also one thing which has caused a massive disruption, right? As I was saying, the amount of rainfall is the same throughout the year, and the average seems to be the same for almost 100 years. Now, what has gone wrong is basically the pattern. Uh, some places where it used to rain for, say, 45 days to 50 days in a rainy season, now it happens in 10 days. The same amount of rainfall, the quanta is the same, but the distribution is a problem. So it has not been gradual. It has been not gradual at all what it used to be. And that is another source of problem. That's a big source of problem. Thing is, one day it rains very heavily. Next 10 days, there is no rainfall. Another few days later, another rainfall. Again, there are gaps. And by the time this whole cycle is kind of very disrupted, because the water, the huge rainfall, because of the lack of green cover and the grasslands, the whole topsoil erodes, and that whole siltation happens into the water bodies, right? So the topsoil erodes, the water percolation decreases, and the groundwater is mined at a drastic pace, and the entire cycle. So we are mining in a very fast pace. There is almost 80 plus percentage of entire dependency of farming on the groundwater itself, and that is something which we need to be very aware of today. The demand for groundwater, because we don't have any alternative to say, right? Because it is all rain-fed area, because of the existing problems what I was talking about. So the groundwater seems the only thing, and the mining is drastic. So what used to be groundwater saturation, and it upswells and continued, as a flow in the streams and rivulets from the catchment till the valley zones. This problem continues and has been becoming more drastic, more, issue of late, and that is something which we need to address, and that's exactly what we try to do. So what do we do for this? So we had to, as I was saying, that rainfall pattern has changed. The huge rain one day, what happens when there's a huge rain one day? Because there is a huge runoff, water runoff means it erodes the topsoil. So we have to slow down the runoff. We have to contain the runoff, so that the way it used to happen, because of the grassland, because of the trees, because of carbon humus content soil, rich soil, the percolation was very good. That is not happening today, because the soil conservation is also a very important aspect of water conservation too. So that is where we kind of have to ensure that the water flows slow, percolates at every point in time, and not at one place, and it will serve the entire area or the basin, but it has to percolate at every possibilities, at every place, because that is how the nature works. Nature does not have one dam for everyone, right? Nature helps, it rains, it percolates everywhere, and there is an upswell, and that is how your water bodies are maintained. So we had to kind of slow down the runoff. What do we do? So we created border checks, to slow down the speed of the water, reduce soil erosion. So it contains the soil erosion, it kind of slows down, and it will also help little bit of percolation at that point. So three benefits of creating a border check. This is not same as a check dams what has been created also. This border checks are a permeable media. We don't use cement and all. It's only the set of borders put into a position where they get interlocked, and the media is still permeable for water to flow through, but it will slow down for certain. It is like a hum which we do on a very good road to reduce the speed of vehicles, right? The same thing happens on the stream. And where do we do so? There are two ways to think about in the integrated water resource management. One is the drainage treatment, where the water flows from the catchment. There are first order stream, second order, third order, until the nth order of a river. So the water flows in, certainly due to gravity, from all of this region, percolating at every point in time. So what is the best way to deal with this is to put recharge structures where water naturally flows rather than getting distributed across, right? Spread across. So this is an immediate terrain where we could work with. We know that it flows in the particular streams. So we had to do a drainage treatment where we construct all these kind of recharge structures on the streams and the rivulets, usually considering the first order to fourth order, considering the size of the the width of the stream or a rivulet, because we need to hold this water at those catchment areas. And after which we kind of construct a recharge and an injection wells. The injection wells is also called, in some areas, called as a recharge shaft. A recharge well is something 20 feet down, excavated earth. We put boulders, cement rings in between, and there is a sudden gap in terms of when the water flows gets into. I'll show some of the one video in how water percolates when first time it rains, and how the parched earth sucks the water in when we kind of do these kind of structures. So recharge well is only 20 feet down, considering the weathered rock area, the soil area, and the shallow aquifer zones, and basically the unconfined and semi-confined aquifer zones which we deal with. And there is also, this, since we have worked humongous effort in the hard rock terrain, we have to also address how do we catch the or recharge the deep aquifer zones. So we kind of, in the same recharge well, we kind of create a tube well or a bore well, as what is popularly called, in the center of the cement range. I'll show some how it looks like. So the water percolates. This is up to feet, 200 to 300 feet based on the terrain, and the water percolates into deep aquifer zones. And we also have what we create water pools. It is important to understand what is happening. Places like ours, especially Karnataka, in some places like Tumkur, Chitradurga, Kolar, there are a lot of tanks, water bodies, right? So what happens? There are huge, few acres of perimeter which we have, and once one rainfall, that whole rainwater get distributed into the huge lake, but the percolation is less because there is a silt, and since it's a very thin surface distribution, the percolation and the gravity is also much not helping for better percolation. So what do we do in such cases? That is happening because if there is a gradual rainfall, there is a gradual flow, the water continues to percolate. But in the kind of erratic rainfall patterns, this is very important. What we do is the entry of each huge water pool, water tanks, we create a small water pool, say 100 by 100 by 13 feet down. And one rainfall, the water gets stored into the water pool rather than being distributed as a thin surface, and gets collected into that water pool. And that kind of thing, helps better water percolation, because there's the columnar structure which we have, and water percolation again improves. And we also, avoid a lot of evaporation losses. And that is something what water pool has helped. And even while the continuous recharge through the stream to these connected tanks also help this water pool to, have the water for a longer period of time than the entire lake, because the groundwater recharge, evidence can be seen in these kind of water pools, where, because these water pools, as we have evidence that these water is available even in the summer season, and because the groundwater saturation happens, the water stays in such small water pools, and it has been the case for us. And that is what we are trying to do. And this is something which I have for the hard rock terrain. Again, the same idea, premise is the same, right? To contain the runoff, um, improve the percolation possibilities, and at the same time increase the vegetation cover. So tree plantation is one, slowing down the water is one, ensuring that we have recharge across the entire basin area is another thing, and create water pools for the entire process of continuing the hydrological cycle. So something of that which we have done. This is very particular sample solution to the hard rock terrain, but it can change. The premise is the same in terms of what we want to do to slow down the water, to recharge it well at every place. As very timely, I'm very happy with Jal Shakti Ministry of announcing the catch the rain where it falls, when it falls. So exactly something approach has been done by us across the entire river basin, entire watershed. So which is something has been done under Manrega and the CSR funds too. We have both examples, some places where a lot of urbanization has happened, Manrega may not be of much help, or in the peri-urban, suburban areas, we have used CSR funding-based projects, where in the huge catchment areas, I spoke about 5,000 plus square kilometer area, we have utilized Manrega funding. And till today, the Vedavati River Basin, if even I've seen a recent Niti Aayog report, which did talk about Vedavati River Basin as a good example under Manrega, to use that kind of scheme which is available, which gives the labor and creates an asset for groundwater reachers right across the entire basin, not at one village, not at two villages, but across the entire hydrological boundary of that water, what we define, what is called the watershed. So that is what has been done. Now, as I talked about, these are the structures of what you can see in the image. The boulder check, the recharge well, injection well looks almost same, but with perforated casing in between a tube well, which goes up to a depth of 200 to 300 feet based on the terrain. Then we have water pools, as you can see, the columnar structures created the entry of the water. We do a lot of desiltation, ensuring that only the silt part is covered, not taking off the pristine sand cover and the clay part of it, but only the silt is removed in the tanks and the riverbed. And we do work with the farmers as well in the overall, as I was talking of the drainage treatment, but it's also important we talk about the overall area. Water does flow into the streams and rivulets and comes into tanks, but it's also that the huge spread is on the other areas, which are predominantly farming lands, or where cultivation happens, in terms of whether it is crop or it is horticulture or a social forestry area. So we kind of work in these areas, also create bunds, trenches, former ponds, based on very technical possibility in terms of how this can be done, what kind of soil, what kind of slopes we are dealing with, what kind of overall hydrological geology, geomorphology area, all that is understood and done in terms of how these things could be designed. And the important aspect, the best approach for a better water percolation or groundwater upswell is a lot of tree plantation, which has no replacement. But if I start something today, I'll at least have to take 20 years to get back to a green cover which used to be. So it takes time. So, but the effort has to be started. So in that direction, we have created many projects within Art of Living called Mission Green Earth Initiatives, and all of our river rejuvenation activities does plantation across the foreshore areas, or even other social forestry areas. In Karnataka, we call as Gomalas, where basically helps the livestock for food, and we kind of do other specific private areas tree plantation whenever it is available for us to do it. So we work in the various departments, private institutions, to see how the tree plantations can be involved. include various companies, corporates to be participating. Some of the pictures down shows that it is HL employees are working, Intel employees are working with us, Cisco employees working with us to do the plantation. So that is something which we have done. So as important, increase the tree plant, green vegetation cover, green cover right across the river basin. Create what our subject matter experts, doctors do call is eco restoration cell. Every village, every gram panchayat should have set of eco restoration cell, huge canopy area for completing the hydrological cycle. जो जल चक्र बोलते हैं उसको रिवाइव करने का यही एक तरीका है. उसके साथ साथ जो ट्री प्लांटेशन करते हैं तो हम आर्टिफिशियल स्ट्रक्चर्स भी बनाते हैं जिनसे पानी परकुलेट होता है, ग्राउंड वाटर सैचुरेट होता है. Once it saturates, once there is a base flow enough, then there is an upswell, obviously, which you can see as a surface water. Now, some of the impacts which we have created, this is one of the village in Vellore, which सम्मान्य प्रधानमंत्री जी अपने मन की बात में बात किए थे. ये वेल्लूर का एरिया है which has got a best district award for implementation of river rejuvenation activities under Manrega. So you can see this, both images are in the month of March. This is 2014 and one is 2018. You can see the green cover which has happened, right? And that is a change which we bring in, because what it basically means is the soil moisture has improved. We did a lot of other studies too in terms of creating a lot of observation wells, seeing how groundwater has improved. We regularly monitor the impact in terms of our capacity, which has worked across each of these areas, to see how the water has groundwater has improved. And we do study satellite imageries. We call it NDVI. I'll not get into too technical, but that clearly establishes what is the increase in the green cover. And during specifically those seasons, which would be which would be obviously a water scarcity, non-monsoon seasons. So we have seen that as well. And this is a complete holistic approach, right? We talk of the catchments, settlements, people, we talk of soil conservation, we talk of agroforestries, agrohorticulture, afforestation to the right places. So we talk of entire thing. So this basically also kind of creates a soil conservation possibilities, and also work with farming groups. We have our Art of Living has our own agriculture research and technology institute, which kind of also help training in natural farming possibilities. So which basically also helps in soil conservation. So what is that we have done so far? 47 rivers. We have kind of constructed 21,000 plus structures. We have increased the storage to the number what is indicative there, 25 crore plus, but that is kind of old, which is more than that now. People benefited is 17 million, 6,000 plus villages, and we are working in 4 states now. We'll be soon working with the different states as well. Again, considering a different, not just hard rock terrain, but also going to Indo-Gangetic plain, alluvial zones, the way how water percolation happens, what are the best structures. In terms, we'll have different things to deal with. One obviously would be the geomorphological, geological challenges, but also with how people manage that in terms of water and how do they treat the water itself. So we have, as I said, predominantly worked in Karnataka. We have recently, in June 2020, we did sign a MOU with Karnataka state government under RDPR ministry to work on the entire state on improving the groundwater across the entire river basins of Karnataka, be it Krishna, Kaveri, or the Palar basins, which are predominantly the basins which we have. We kind of working on to improve each of these areas, and we have already kick-started work in 12 and 6 districts where actually the structures have started, and we want to utilize the windows available for us to do in a year very effectively and monitor it. And we have been working in Maharashtra. We have worked across most, 10 plus districts of Maharashtra and many rivers and tributaries of it. We have done a lot of desiltation activities in that area. This is a basaltic zone, which have a lot of tabletop mountains and valley zones where the water gets collected, a lot of lakes, water tank. So we kind of desilt it to improve the water recharge happen across the places and gets distributed across the villages. Tamil Nadu, of course, again under Manrega, we have almost done 5 districts. Vellore has got the best award and a mention in Man Ki Baat from Prime Minister Sir, Modi sir. So that is something which has happened. And how do we kind of support this kind of work? Basically, we have subject matter experts, hydrogeologists, geospatial time, GIS analysts, data analysts in terms of, once we have to go with a particular settlement, particular area, we need to understand, do a lot of surveys, collect baseline data in terms of current water situations, in terms of quality, in terms of quanta. So there is a lot of data which you need to analyze. So there is a data analyst, and based on which the impact has been measured from the baseline, comparing to the baseline data, and available data from various government agencies, where the Central Groundwater CGWB has data, rainfall, IMD or the local rainfall gauge stations have data. So we kind of analyze all that. We get a lot of thematic maps from ISRO agencies, state agencies. We kind of study them. We have our own GIS lab to study that. We do integrate a lot of this thematic area, be it soil texture, geology, geomorphology, whatever. We talk of considering entire various thematic areas. There are 30 plus thematic areas which we talk about. So a lot of data which is required. So that is where the geospatial team and GIS analysts kind of work with the hydrogeologists who have almost 30 to 40 years of experience, have been worked in this area, or have visions in terms of how things could be optimized to do a better groundwater recharge. So that is something which we have. Civil engineers obviously required to design our structures based on soil type, how it will hold, what kind of structures, what kind of material is available. In terms of copying the nature, again, not diversing from the nature of what used to be, not doing a lot of cementing and those kind of activities, but to be very near to the nature in terms of how it was designed and how we can replicate that nature to the greatest possibilities. So the civil engineers work in that area. Again, when it comes to any watershed activities, what is important is having community support. And without community support, without having the community to participate, we just cannot work, and that is impossible. We have learned it through. We have a tremendous experience in that area of how what kind of challenges we do get, what kind of solutions we could create, how do we work with the community at large, understanding their problem, not at just a scale of water, but even into livelihood, farming, market linkages, whatever it could be. Overall, holistically working with the community to ensure their participation. So whatever in skill upgradation, in terms of providing any consulting help, be it agriculture or providing even the seeds if we have contact sources, because Art of Living, as I said, is a huge voluntary based organization. A lot of people, a lot of experts, willing to support. We kind of create a network of those to create a very strong support system to build that. So that part of the community and community enablement, capacity building is very essential. And most of our projects, working under Manrega, are successful for the reason that we could do that, because we could create, a capacity workforce of our own to monitor these kind of activities, be it create a district coordinator, taluk coordinators, panchayat coordinators. Under panchayat, we had every ward, people. So we created, in Karnataka, we called them Kayaka Bandhu. So we had this kind of a structure, outside any of, funded by Art of Living itself, where these people could sit, monitor activity on day-to-day basis. And for them to make it easy for monitoring, as Ashok ji was talking about in our introduction, that we have created mobile apps which can help them easily monitor, even from the starting from executing the action plan, identifying the location of where the action plan is, and how do we create structures, what do we do a lot of training for this, reorientation programs for each of these individuals to see how that monitoring and rigorous control or a quality review happens at each stage. So we have civil engineers working with this ground team. We have experts working on the ground team to see how to help them, continue enabling that kind of workforce. And this workforce, not only, river work can last for a few months, right? And what do they do beyond that? So we try to see how these people can be employed. So we create a lot of skill upgradation programs where they can stand up on themselves in terms of livelihood creation, in terms of, even today in Karnataka, we've experimented, creating common service centers for these kind of coordinators where they can earn beyond the river activities and also participate, or create more kind of participation in that community or particular communities which we talk about. So that is something which we do. And obviously, part to be, to fund this, to control this, there's a lot of operation and support. We have finance, IT team, creative group media to, bring along all this story to make it a, people to understand or to even to glance into what is kind of story which has been created. So we have the whole kind of team created, and thanks to Gurdev, and it started quite early in the day when we were working on. We got the whole team created based on how projects came along to us or the problem came along to us. Now, as I was saying, the important point of working with the a demand side of a water is to ensure that there is a good usage of water, and to do that we have to do a lot of training programs. We have our own water literacy programs in terms of understand what is the available quanta, what is the quality in terms of what definition, what do you mean by watershed projects, what is water demand and accounting, budgeting, how to create water security plans in the overall context of what is available, and how positive we can be in terms of whether we are water positive, water negative. More you recharge, you're water positive. More you use and less recharge, you're water negative. So all this kind of measures and metrics brought into the system for create a water professional in each of these panchayats to see how this can be done. And that is the kind of vision forward which we keep right across to say how to build workforce to that an aspect that every panchayat, every village has a water sensitive, water knowledgeable professional available, in terms of how that workforce can be created and supported right along with many other possibilities. So to sustain that kind of a workforce, to sustain ourselves and ensure community participation, we have to work on various skill development activities. Art of Living has its own rural development programs where skill development is given, whether it is artisan, whether it is woodwork, whether it is plumbing, electrician, whatever is the requirement. We, as I said, we do a lot of data analytics and understanding the need, the knowledge capital or the resource capital of a particular area. So we design the skills needed for that particular area. We come about it, create what market visibility, market linkages, whether it is digital, what is the direct. So we kind of try to see how that market support has also been designed in terms of help farmers to sell his produce with a greater with the increase idea of increase in the livelihood. As I said, skills, this is one example where ITI resource were available, trained, there was a plan for that. We kind of said how do we create each of this, and we designed a particular plan in particular area based on the need. So this is some example of that. I'll show you this video running down here. You can see that water is being sucked in. This is the first rainfall which has happened in that area. It's a black soil area. The water is flowing from the boulder into the recharge well. That is the recharge well, the rectangular structure with a cement ring in between, in the center of it. And see how water is really sucked in, because the obviously it's the first monsoon. The land is parched, so there is a demand for water, and the water gets percolated in. And once this happens, this is 20 feet depth, so there is a lateral sidewards percolation, and soil moisture improves, and cultivable lands also will be increased based on how the water is kind of absorbed. You can see these water pools. It's a summer. One of this, you can see my mouse pointer running across a water pool. It helps, even in the summer, since the water is available in those water pools, you can see, it helps the livestock. We have seen this many a times. It's been our experience throughout, how it helps the livestock even in summer. And a lot of farmers do come to, to these water pools, what we have created in those areas. We do a lot of on-job training for job card holders under Manrega. We do a 3-day session in a closed area. Then we go onto the field, train them on the field, how to construct these kind of structures, we understand how it helps the water percolation. So there's an on-job training on the ground. There is a classroom training as well. So we kind of work on of all of this in terms of its entirety. So we have got various testimonials from each state. Not well into this. There are farmers. One of this, farmer called Tammegowda, in Canada, came to us in almost 9 or 10 p.m. It was dark, running, excited, say that his dried up borewell suddenly could see a fountain of water coming out of his dried up borewell. It was no miracle, but it just, from the geological or geomorphological thing, it helped his borewell, which was dry for last 4 years, almost about 450 feet depth, which was dry. We could see an upswell in that borewell, and that kind of stories have been there throughout. And that is why, getting farmers, after a pilot in a particular area, it is very easy because he can see that there is a difference which is creating. And today, instead of spending few lakhs of amount to create a borewell to extract the groundwater, he's believing in using few thousand to create a recharge structure right across. And that is something which is very remarkable for us, because that learning is what we want to see right across. So there have been news coverages. So this is something which has happened. So now going back, as I said, it's a very holistic program, from understanding very scientifically based action plan creation to its delivery with the community leaders, with enough support in terms of IT, in terms of mobile apps, in terms of various possibilities has been done. Such infrastructure has been created. So for me, any such place call for action would be that people can consult us, talk to us if they have a water problem, be it in terms of quanta, the availability of water, or in terms of in the quality itself. We have been working on the water quality also, especially of late. We see the urban crisis. The urban planning has been a mess considering the water, and there is a lot of stormwater drain, sewage lanes mixed into the water bodies and corrupting the whole water. And grey water problem has been predominant in the towns and the metros and cities. So that is something which we are equally well equipped to address. We are working of late in terms of, again, going back to the desk, how to do a scientific planning, how to understand the overall catchment, how does the water flow, what are the point of compromises, how do we create, various solutions to such plan, or how do we improve the overall planning, how to assist, organization or agencies for urban planning. All that has been, also worked out. We kind of started this of late, because our idea was to, work on the entire river basins, usually at the catchment areas. Now we are talking of settlements in terms of, rural settlements, improve the water literacy programs, enable more participation from the communities, and coming back to the urban and the, towns and cities and metros to see how urban planning can be handled with regards to water itself. So something which we have been doing. I'm very happy to share that, and it's quite timely, when I, heard it from Ashok ji when he was here, that they are starting this campaign. And in the recent Man Ki Baat, Modi ji addressed, Sanmanya Pradhan Mantri ji addressed, Catch the Rain program, and it is very, very right time, and we have a full support from our organization to the ministry to, be part of it, to take it to better possibilities forward. Thank you. If there are questions, I'm open to that right now.
Excellent. You covered the entire gamut of we were looking at it, and I think it definitely would have inspired. So we'll open for questions now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Desai. Like Ashokji rightly mentioned, wonderful presentation and wonderful knowledgeable thoughts. And I'm sure, like us, many other who are watching us live must be wanting to ask. There are a couple of suggestions coming in and a couple of pointers also coming in. So we are now officially opening up for the question answer session. For all those who are joining us for the very first time, I would like to brief you on the format. Right in front of your computer, you have a window wherein you have a chat box option. You can either write your query in the chat box or you can raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, my team will unmute you. Please introduce yourself and then put forward your query. We are now open for the Q&A. Mr. Shaumat Gandhi.
Yeah, hi. Hi, my name is Saurabh,
Yeah.
and I am an independent consultant. My question is that how big role does rejuvenation play in securing safe drinking water for all households?
Okay, thank you, Saurabh ji. It's a good question.
Can I request everyone to please mute your mics? Can I request everyone to kindly mute your mics? Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Desai, please.
Thank you.
Over to
Thank you, Saurabh ji. Thank you, Anupam ji. Yeah, it's quite important because when I said the definition of rejuvenation, river rejuvenation here is basically ensuring that the disrupted hydrological cycle is balanced. So in that sense, what used to be when the groundwater saturates itself, then there is an upswell. It comes up through the soil and starts flowing, or it comes into the water bodies, whatever you can see. So the important aspect is of understanding the surface and the groundwater linkages, to understand the disrupted hydrological cycle in terms of green cover and its role in terms of bringing the rains and doing a very gradual rainfalls. The green cover is required. So it's very important in the overall context on definition of river rejuvenation with type 2. The groundwater has to be saturated. The surface water has to therefore be available right through, because if you have seen, most of our rivers today have become seasonal. What used to be perennial or available 12 months have become very seasonal. That is because of the fact that the groundwater has been mined to a greater extent, and hence that upswell does not happen, and hence even in the non-monsoon seasons, what river used to flow, it's not flowing today. That is because of that groundwater thing, which is very important. And hence the kind of river rejuvenation activities which we talk about is to saturate the ground and hence make the surface water available right across, and hence it solves the water or improves the water security right across. I hope I have answered your question, Saurabh.
So there is another one which has come through the chat box, and it is by Mr. Paritosh Tyagiji, and he is wanting to know if River Yamuna is also by any chance one of those 47 rivers which have been, Art of Living been working on, and if so, then what are the initiatives being taken in that regard? I'm sorry, Ravindra ji, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yamuna is not part of the 47 rivers which we talked about, but Yamuna is something which we worked upon in terms of cleansing it some time back, and we wish to want to do that again. As I said, we have started working into Indo-Gangetic Plain right now. We will be soon taking in a Ramganga area, and we'll also move on to the Yamuna part very soon. But as I said, Yamuna is not part of the 47 rivers, but we wish to work on the Yamuna revival again.
Then there is another query by Mr. Rajendra Pawar, and he is asking if along with river rejuvenation and water conservation, are there any scientific approaches being followed for flood mitigation as well?
Actually, very good question. See, flood and drought are the faces of the same coin, right? It is the same problem, right? Why does it flood? Why, when we're talking about the same amount of rainfall right across, it floods and there is drought? The Chennai example of recent years is very important because during the rainy season, it did flood. During the summer, there was no water, and there are even, in fact, a few offices were closed because even drinking water was not available. And that is the drastic gap, what we understand right now. So it's very important that we have a very scientific based approach to deal with this in terms of improving the land use changes has been drastic too. We have encroached upon the stream networks, we have encroached upon the tanks where the water used to collect, flow due to gravity, due to understanding the soil texture, soil types. The water used to percolate at some point in time, but we have made a whole of this urban area into concrete jungles. There's no water, so it has to flood, and that is how it has been. So that is why I said when it comes to urban, we have to do a lot of urban planning in terms of how water entire catchment should not be disturbed due to urbanization. Is it possible? Absolutely, it is possible. We are trying it. We are trying to experiment in a very small way. Take a particular lake. Where is the catchment for that particular lake in that urban area? And how do we ensure that whether it is to the man-made channels, drainages today, or through the existing channels itself for its delivery? So we are trying to enable those parts and to ensure that there's no point of compromise where the gray water or the polluted water does not mix in. If it does, it has to go in. How do we treat it at the right places? And again, the STPs, and again, working on the STPs in terms of very decentralized way in terms of how it can be treated at the source itself. Even that is being discussed and that is being planned. Is it possible scientifically? Yes, it is possible to scientifically mitigate the flood problems as well.
Ms. Smita Rao, she is wanting your inputs that how as an individual, as a citizen, she can contribute in river rejuvenation.
Good question again. Smita ji, I'm happy you asked me this question. Whenever we talk like this, we have a call for action. There could be many ways where how we can work on the water. It could be as simple as a plumbing problem at your home. Most of the places, the plumbing is a problem. Water leakages is drastic. Or working with your, commodes, or how much of water usage we can, or separating the toilets to the drink of potable water in terms of how it can be. So there are many ways people can work as an individual or with an organization. So as an individual, we have to see the usage is right. Whether from the point of farming community, how to do a less water intensive crop, how to distribute their crops, coming down to the metro and the town people, how to help better water usage, have a sense of water metering, accounting, budgeting for that, for your own sense, not that, it is monetarily affected. It will probably in years later, but obviously we have to come to a stage where we know, we are aware of each of the water. Or another part is you have a lake nearby, you have a problem, you need a kind of a technical help, then you can call us, you can visit our website. There is always contacts given there in terms of calling us. A lot of projects have started that way. They have come to us, individuals have come to us, or communities have, civic societies have come to us for help. We have worked on a particular lake, so you can always do that, call us. Or we do also a lot of training programs for people, for an individuals to be water aware. You can participate in that. You can be more aware. You can be our trainers, train the next level in schools, in colleges, to just make people water aware. That is very essential, and that is where these kind of programs, called by a leader, state leader, catch the rain, would help, because that creates a water awareness, and that is very eventful and timely. That's where I congratulate the ministry.
I did see a hand raised, Mr. Santosh Saxena.
Thank you, Mr. Desai, for your wonderful presentation. And the work you are doing is just wonderful. I hope that you will cover the entire country and help people. Now, we are also working in the same field, but at a grassroots level. And recently, we've submitted a rejuvenation plan of Dev Nadi. So our main thrust is on relationship of groundwater and water. During rains, effluent conditions are developed in river and groundwater is recharged. Conversely, during summers, influent conditions are created and groundwater comes to the river. Now, if particular structures, especially check dams, are constructed in those small nalas which are meeting the river, I think the groundwater will increase, and during summers, river will get sufficient water. Besides, if there's a hilly area, we can construct into trenches so that the water through hills goes up to the river even in the summers. So I think our effort at the grassroots level, you will appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh Ji.
Thank you, Santosh Ji. Yeah, as you said, it is important, but we have a holistic program. Whether it is a drainage treatment, part of the river network, streams, rivulets, channels, but also work on the areas treatment with farming land, ensure that we slowly come out of the flood irrigations. We kind of take drip or a sprinkler methodologies, or irrigation possibilities, and also bring about huge sense of awareness in terms of water, for everyone to create a water security plans for themselves, be it village level, panchayat level, so that they understand what are the ecological assets they have for each of these, whatever water resources they have. How do they account it? How do they budget it? What kind of rainfall do they get? And how much did they get? And how much they could draw in, extract from the ground? So all that is very important, and hence it has to be holistic. And that is where I'm very happy that our organization has our experiments in that area has worked out well. And we would, as I said, we would continue to work in entire zones, as I call, create a test beds or a pilots in each of a different agroclimatic and geomorphological zones, in terms of how what kind of structures, what kind of community, and how different challenges, risks can be mitigated, and create a huge test bed, data centers, knowledge centers for each of these activities. And that is exactly what our vision forward is. Thank you.
I can see Mr. Pawan raising hand, though earlier it wasn't raised, and I could see a lot of messages from your side. So good to see your hand raised, Mr. Pawan.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Please
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sir, thanks for the knowledgeable webinar on the water scarcity and water rechargeable and rejuvenation of river. Sir, are we going for eastern side of Western Ghat and western side of Western Ghat? So in the monsoon in India come from the eastern side. So is there any provision for at your project that the extra rainfall or extra water we can get through the eastern side from the western side?
Mr. Desai, I request you to kindly unmute yourself.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry again. Yeah. Right. I think it was Pavanji. Yeah. Right. See, when we plan the entire riverization activities, we kind of consider, as I said, the entire river basin. When I say, say for example, let's take Kaveri. It comes from the place called Talakaveri. It's again the Ghat area. It's part of the Kodagu district in Karnataka. So it is part of the Western Ghats, which leads further into Kerala. All this whole, I mean, we kind of consider the entire terrain, seeing the east flowing, west flowing. How do we deal with this? So it's good enough and kind of how water distribution from the point of rainfall. If we can store that itself to a greater optimized way, then I don't have to pirate the water from the western side to eastern side or eastern side to west side. That can be done. There are techniques to do it, but my immediate suggestion may not be towards that. But there is good rainfall, of course, in terms of a disturbed pattern or erratic pattern. We have to adapt to that pattern and still create a very good possibility of doing an optimized recharge at each of these areas. So there is a possibility technically I can get the western side of the water flowing to the eastern side. There are ways of doing it. I can create a funnel here, funnel it through and get it into the eastern side. There are various techniques and methodologies which can help us to do it. We wanted to try, but for now, what water we have, what kind of rainfall we get in each of the place, even if you kind of increase the recharge for each of these areas, utilizing the best way to store water is our earth, Mother Earth itself. So the best storage capacity, best tank available for you is that Mother Earth itself. So that is the best way to deal with it in whatever terms of water available. Even then, if it does not suffice us, then I think we can still do that technically.
And one more thing, because the interlinking of rivers was being thought out. I mean, this is probably a bigger thing, but what you have suggested is transferring the water from one side of the mountain to the other side of the mountain. I'm talking about transferring water from one river basin to another river basin. That's also a lot of thought has been going on. And probably on 22nd March, along with our launch for the Catch the Rain campaign, we may also sign an agreement for the Ken-Betwa linkage. It is again probably the first of its kind inter-basin small transfer of water from Madhya Pradesh area to Bundelkhand area of Uttar Pradesh. The agreement, member of agreement, will be signed by the Chief Minister and Madhya Pradesh in the presence of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Shakti. That could be one of the very major event in this. But as he said, if we can store the water, that's better water rather than making so much of operations and cutting the muscles and diverting the water. We don't know what will be the ecological impact. Many unknowns are there, so let us not do major surgery, but if we can store the water, and as you were suggesting, that would be a better solution. This is a very interesting idea, nevertheless.
Ashok ji, as thank you for that, and that is where I found your catch the rain, where it falls, when it falls, is very timely and very aptly worded, because that is exactly what we need to do. It is possible to get the water from different basins. It is a lot of engineering activities. It's needed, duly needed. We can still do it, but if we can catch the rain at every places, store it into the mother, that is the best possibility right now.
We also have another person, Dharamveer. Can we have Dharamveer ji?
Can I ask, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
It's a commendable job which is being done by Art of Living Society. But how about its sustainability? Because villagers ultimately, we have so many villages in our country, and they have to ultimately carry forward, sustain it themselves. Do you do some monitoring so that it continues even when your presence is not there? That is one question. Another is, of course, when you do a basin study, you said that you focus on a basin, and you said there were rain shadow areas, there were with the 300 mm, and there were other better areas with higher rainfall. Do you do some kind of a balancing? Because I'm sure that even within an area, some farmers I have seen extract with huge pumps. They deprive the smaller farmers who are not having capacity of a bigger pumps. And there is a lot of a dispute I have seen in the villages amongst the farmers. I want to get educated on these 2-3 areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Let me answer the second question. In terms of how kind of activities we work upon, we ensure that there has to be a groundwater upswell, right? And we are not charging at one place and it gets distributed. So we have to charge it at every places. So we have a distribution of that, whether it is an area treatment or a drainage treatment, we have kind of. So it has to be there. The demand side problems which you're talking about, in terms of somebody having a greater capacity of a motor to draw more water to compare to the marginal farmer not having that possibility, those situations are very much there, part of the demand. So what we do is to create that kind of water awareness, bring them into that fold. We create water usage committees where that kind of a knowledge is applied. So this water literacy program, what we tried to do, we kind of started it, but based on our 8 years long experience into working with the communities in terms of disputes, in terms of crisis, in terms of issues, we kind of prepared this water literacy program to get to that knowledge and create a community of water usage to understand water distribution to the right possibilities. So people have to account their water needs, and that is exactly why we are doing this kind of water literacy program, because that accounting and budgeting has to be there. So that is something which we want to, because that can only happen by bringing the community in. Now, going back to your first question, community has to sustain. Art of Living can sustain it for years throughout. No, idea is to ensure the community is enabled to sustain itself. But as you said, the workforce created is not only created for creation of the structures, recharge structures, but also maintained for furthermore years in terms of various other plans or skill upgradation or economic activity or market linkages, various other activities from the demand side, we continue to utilize that workforce, which will continue to monitor along with the locals, because even these workforce what we create are not the foreign labor which is coming out there. It is, we have identified the resources in their own areas. We have enabled them. We have built that capacity, which will continue to monitor as well for say from 3 years to 5 years. And if need be some particular area which has a crisis, we continue for a longer period of time based on other programs which has taken up in that areas. Because we usually when get into particular intervention in particular area, we don't leave it after that intervention is done. We continue to stay there. We continue to work there, creating our volunteer, further establishing a volunteer activity-based activities in that area. So we try to contain that and monitor that activity further.
Thank you, Mr. Desai. And I think with this, we come to the end of Q&A. I don't see any more hand raises. Though still, in case you all feel that there is anything which you would like to ask from NWM, from Mr. Desai, or from Water Digest, just write your query and send it across to National Water Mission or to Water Digest. We'll be happy to take that forward. And all those questions which have been asked today, they will all be answered, and they will find their place on the National Water Mission website also, so that later on, if somebody wants to see it, you can definitely refer to the FAQs. So with this, we are ending the Q&A and moving forward. Now I hand it over to Ashok ji. Over to you, Ashok sir.
There are some questions in the A session. I'm sorry. If you can transfer that to me later, we can answer that also. Technical.
Thank you. What a good ending to the second year of the water talks. This is the 24th water talk, and very, very nicely ended with a very erudite, very ground level talk from Desai sir. And what they had done is not just talking, they have shown it in the field. I have personally visited some of the places, and some of the photos I found, I could recollect the places which I visited, the photographs, I think those photographs have you seen, where the villages are themselves getting involved. And a very good question on sustainability was raised. Yes, many times we find these fly-by-night operating NGOs, but they are there to stay. As far as I know, the villages have they're building team people, volunteers from the village level, and then making them sustain. It's a very, very excellent model which they have done. They are doing it, and I hope that this trend catches on. And from the 33 small rivulets which have run, I hope that they will spread all over the country, and their experience and knowledge will be shared and be used for a lot of people. Anyway, your talk will be available in our website, and generally a lot of people who not join today come and visit our websites and visit our and go through the links which we are providing. So I'm sure that this would be inspiring them, and for particularly in the next 3 months when their bus is there all I was just telling my IT team to look at how many are there for the catcher in the last 1 week or 2 weeks. If I want that, there are more than 6,000 hits. It's a very nice, encouraging thing that people are visiting our website and seeing the activities which, particularly in the catcher and we are doing. Nice. Thank you, Ravinderji. We will ask formally what the thanks will be given by my advisor from the I'm sure that your talk has inspired, and I could get a lot of good information about the various activities to be done and how it can be done and technically. Not like सरपंच की मर्जी जहाँ पे आए वो करे, ऐसा नहीं है. You have done it very systematically planned way and involving the people, and that will probably ensure sustainability of the programs. Thanks you once again. We look forward for longer association with the team, and definitely it will be a symbiotic relationship which we can mutually helpful to both of us. Thanks you. Sunil, please.
अपर सचिव मिशन डायरेक्टर श्री अशोक कुमार जी, आज के हमारे मुख्य वक्ता श्री देसाई जी, सभी वरिष्ठ अधिकारीगण, इस जल संगोष्ठी में उपस्थित सभी श्रोतागण का मैं हार्दिक अभिवादन करता हूं। आज की इस जल संगोष्ठी कार्यक्रम के लिए मैं अपनी तरफ से नेशनल वाटर मिशन की तरफ से सबसे पहले तहे दिल से अपने मुख्य वक्ता श्री रविंद्र देसाई जी का आभार प्रकट करता हूं और हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूं, जिन्होंने अपने व्यस्त कार्यक्रम से समय निकालकर आज की जल संगोष्ठी में शिरकत की, अपना बहुमूल्य समय दिया। मैं आप सब लोगों की तरफ से भी इनकी भूरी भूरी प्रशंसा करता हूं। आज हमारे पास हमारे सम्मानित वक्ता के प्रति आभार प्रकट करने के लिए पर्याप्त शब्द नहीं है, जिन्होंने हमें रिवर रिजुविनेशन के बारे में बहुत डिटेल में बताया। उन्होंने अपने अनुभव और राय साझा करके इस वाटर टॉक को बहुत ही दिलचस्प और सार्थक बनाया है। हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का कहना है कि हम एक जल आंदोलन को जल आंदोलन में बदलना है, और अभी हाल ही में 28 फरवरी को मन की बात प्रोग्राम के दौरान माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने मार्च महीने में के आखिर में वर्षा जल संरक्षण के लिए एक जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन को शुरू करने का ऐलान भी किया है। मैं आप सब लोगों को हमारे जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन कैंपेन में शामिल होने के लिए गुजारिश करता हूं, ताकि हमारा देश जल उपलब्धता में सेल्फ सस्टेनेबल रहे। मैं सभी उपस्थित लोगों को वाटर टॉक के इस सत्र में शामिल होने के लिए और आज यहाँ हमारे वक्ता की हौसला अफजाई करने के लिए इस सत्र में पूरे उत्साह, विश्वास और ऊर्जा के साथ हिस्सा लेने के लिए धन्यवाद करता हूँ। मैं धन्यवाद करता हूँ अपर सचिव मिशन डायरेक्टर श्री जी अशोक कुमार जी का और उनकी अगुवाई में काम करने वाली नेशनल वाटर टीम का। इनके अथक प्रयास या सहयोग से कार्यक्रम अच्छी तरह संपूर्ण हुआ है। जो लोग प्रत्यक्ष रूप से इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े थे, जैसे वाटर डाइजेस्ट टीम, मीडिया टीम ऑफ DWR, उन सब का भी मैं धन्यवाद करता हूँ। और आखिरी में मैं कहना चाहूंगा, प्यासी धरती करे पुकार, वर्षा जल ना जाए बेकार। मैं अब ज्यादा समय न लेते हुए आज के धन्यवाद प्रस्ताव को यहीं पर समाप्त करता हूं। टेक केयर, बी सेफ, थैंक यू वेरी मच, जय हिंद।
Thank you everyone for joining us. Look forward to your presence in the next water talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I request all the participants to join for our launch of the Catherine program on 22nd March using our Facebook link. We are encouraging more and more people to come into the Facebook link because of many reasons. One, to indifference come ho jayenge, because when we found that when we are giving many people permission to in the main platform, many times the mics are not used, or we find to move here and there. That type of disturbances coming up. So I request all of you to come to our social media website so that you can track and you can see what is going on there. Thanks a lot. Please join us for the launch on 22nd March for the World Water Day. Thank you.
All the best for the event, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.